Hello, children of God. So, for this module, I decided to record the discussion. So, there would be time that I will be recording like this. And then, of course, there will be times wherein I will require you to have a synchronous meeting with me. Or I might send you the e-modules, katong mga suwat lang, and then you have to read. We will be going varied on the delivery of our lessons. And of course, quizzes would always still be there. Oral participation, I might require you for an or for a oral participation drill, or I might require you to record yourself now for a particular output, just like what you did last time. So we will have a varied delivery. And also, I might give you topics for research. Yes, even in online classes, we will still have reporting. Okay, so tonight we will be talking about utilitarianism and its relationship to ethics. So we'll try to look into what is the role of utilitarianism when it comes to ethics. Ethical philosophy differs from the sciences because it is normative or prescriptive by nature rather than descriptive. The ethical philosophy is both normative or prescriptive, and the sciences is descriptive. Now, when we say normative theory aims to make moral judgments on events, focusing on preserving something they deem as morally good, or prevent prevent a change for the worse. So when we say normative, they are those ethical considerations which focuses on events or happenings. They try to focus on preserving something that they feel like morally good. That's why they are trying to prevent any changes that might cause a worsening of a situation or event. So mo nay normative. Okay? Prescriptive means to establish standards for assessing values, judging conduct, and appraising art. It examines what we mean good and bad, right and wrong, beautiful and ugly. So, it seeks to discover and recommend principles for deciding what actions and qualities are worthwhile and why they should be. Okay? So, in differentiating, di ba, ang normative focuses on events, happenings, or mga gawi sa panadiha nga makakontribute og events or happening. So, if normative philosophy, mo focus siya on something, on that panghitabo, events, or gawi that are deemed or considered as morally good. So, mo na ilang kanang try to focus on and will preserve it by preventing any change that might worsen this particular situation. So, mo na normative. Ang prescriptive, on the other hand, has this particular established standard in assessing the values, in judging conducts, or even in appraising art. So, na sila sunod nga standard ang prescriptive. While ang normative tan-aw ra nila og unsay maadyo anang panghitabua, gawia, no? Events, tan-aw nila og unsay maadyo mo na ilang fokusan. Mo na ilang i-try og dili or mo na ilang i-try og prevent nga dili mahimong dautan or dili kanang put into a worst condition. Ang prescriptive naa siya established na daan. Meaning to say, whatever gawi you're doing, whatever events that happen, whatever happening is going on, they try to measure the good or the moral good of it based on the established standards for assessing values, judging conduct, and even appraising art. No? Sumon na jay buot ipaibot. Okay? Descriptive, on the other hand, is um, a concept in ethics in a form of empirical research into the attitudes of individuals or groups of people. In other words, this is the division of philosophical or general ethics that involves the observation of the moral decision-making process with the goal of describing a phenomenon. Ang descriptive pod, lahi pod siya. Okay, it does not have any established standards, or it does not look for something morally good in any events or happenings, but instead it is based on empirical research. When you say empirical research, kana bang mga kanang researches that which uses observation, no, in order to describe the events or happening. So mo na descriptive. So you're going to observe a particular event or happening, and then you're going to describe what happened to that particular events or happening. Okay? In other words, ethics tell us how we ought to act or what we should do, while the sciences are more likely to observe how things are in nature or society. So, mo na siya, no? The normative and prescriptive tells us how we ought to act, what we should do. But descriptive are more likely to observe how things are in nature or society. Okay? So here are the areas of emphasis in making moral judgment. Of course, the first one is the purpose or your motive. Second is the act, the rule or the maxim. And of course, and the third one is the results or the consequences. So, mao nang areas, no, sa mga panghitabo or actuations in which making moral judgment are being emphasized. So, diha tan-awon kung naabay moral judgment. Pwede ba nimo sudlan og moral judgment ning purpose or motive, act, rule or maxim, results or consequences? Anyway, these three areas will be discussed further in our next module o ban pang basta maabot ra ta ani nga module. Okay? In utilitarian perspective, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. But if the result was bad, so the action is considered as bad. Sumuon na siya, no? Because utilitarianism says that the result or the consequences of an act is the real measure of whether it is good or bad. So, this theory emphasizes ends over means, no? Theories like this one that emphasize the results or consequences are called teleological or consequentialists. So, when we talk about utilitarianism, now the philosophy of utilitarianism, ang ato siyang focus na or ang atong tan-awon ingana is the result. What bears the most weight is the result and not the action. So say for example, mayong kakaron si Rian kay nangawat og pagkaon sa grocery store because she feeds them on the hungry tiguang in the street. Is Rian a bad person? Can we consider Rian as immorally bad or immorally bad or immorally or bad person? According to utilitarianism, since the result or the consequence of Rian's act is good, di ba? Good man kay ipakaon man ni siya ang napas mo nga tiguang dira sa kilid. So it saves the action. The act itself has become morally right. Nga naman, because the result is good. It doesn't matter. Utilitarianism doesn't count what you do, but what is the result of what you do. Mo na ang philosophy of utilitarianism. Okay? Okay, abi ko wa nag-record kaya ko. So, utilitarianism concept is introduced by Jeremy Bentham. So, mo siya ang proponents ani nga utilitarianism nga ingon siya nga bahala og unsaon nimo unsay mong buhaton so as long as the result or the consequences are good, then you are deemed to be morally right or morally good. So, mo ni na siguro kawatan po ni sa una. Mangawat rin siya for the benefit of other persons. Mo nang propose siya inga na kaya maka relate siya. Yeah. Another example is katong are you familiar with the movie Robin Hood wherein famous kaya siya nga kawatan. But ang isang mga kinawat ija pong panghatag or ipakaon sa mga less privileged people. Okay? So, muna siya ang utilitarianism. Kadtong gibuhat ni Robin Hood, ang isang gisandigan ingato for him to be considered as not as a villain but a hero or kanang dasbida was the the concept of utilitarianism. Kapoy na sigo. Uy, kapoy na sigo gimawiyaw ninyo kids. Pwede ka muna po sunod. Magpa-report ako sunod kay kansi ko. Sige lang ako. Kamo na po ka para I will be just asking questions and I will be asking questions that are so lisod. Charot. Joke la. Okay. This is Bentham's formulation of utilitarianism. The first one is man is under two great masters. It's either pain or pleasure. So, ingon si Bentham na man is a slave. No? Meaning to say, man acts on the basis or on the command of either pain or pleasure. So, whatever our actions are, gisugo ta, no? Mubuhat ta tungod kay gusto ta masakitan. Example, bisag wa nakahigugmaa, hala, sige lang ang gihapon. Moingon ra ba mo, ako na lang ulit. bisag gisakitan na. Mahal ko siya. Naaray, magbuwag ra gihapon mo sa entrance sa mall. Umayos kayong lahat. Now, that's one example. And then for pleasure, of course, self-explanatory na jud pud ni kids no. Now, we do something because it gives us particular happiness. Ba? So, manibot pasabot ni Bentham nga kita ang ato ko ng mga actuations are actually kanang mandated or dictated by our two great masters, the pain and the pleasure. Now, the great God that we should seek is happiness. That is on hedonistic perspective. Ngan si Bentham, nga, as a hedonistic perspective, man should no, seek happiness. No? Dapat yun kun, I mean, Bentham doesn't have to say that at all. Kamurag, by instinct, no, we seek mga jud pod happiness. Mo bitaw nang musugot tag pasakitan ta bisan pag giadyo na kag kanang unsa na loko-loko sa imong uyab, di gihapon ka mohawa, di gihapon ka makigbuwag, you accept the pain because sa likod ng iyong mga luha nandun pa rin ang happiness. Naman kay imong maka-feel manghapon kag being with that particular person still gives you happiness. Diba? Those actions whose results increase happiness or diminish pain are good, and they have utility. Now, this only means that when a man by nature is seeking for pleasure, and then he was able to achieve happiness, you technically thought that an act is good, diba? So, going back to the example, sige, nakakayuyab, sige, kulataon ka, nangabit, nanguyab, buglain na imong uyab, pero ang ikaw, you still do things that would, kanang make him happy, sana all, no? Sige lang maghapon ka, you stay there, you stay in that toxic relationship, because, again, it gives you happiness. So, ingon si Bentham, in doing things, no, nga bisan pag it gives you kanang pain, since naapon siya kaakibat nga happiness, you thought that what you do is actually good. When in fact, if you're going to analyze really, really, really hard, di na po siya good. Uy, nga naman, you are making that your partner or that particular person, no, ay mong uyab, nga makasa siya farther nimo. Kay, di man ka muhawa ni siya. And ang si Jawa na nahigugman nimo, mamubus ba ka? So, all his actuations nga makapasakit nimo, in doing so, nahimo si siyang dautan. So, pagtuon nimo nga staying with him or her is a good act, is actually not a good act. Nga naman, you're causing someone to sin against you by hurting you in the process. So, gets na. Kung kamo, buwagan mo, anay, Ginoo ko. Inom ra nagtanduay ka usa. And then you're done. Guwapa ka. Guwapo ka. Ayaw lag otubang og sa amin. Joke. Bitaw. So, that was an example of an act that you thought to be good, pero technically, if you analyze further, di na po siya maadyo. Both for you and your partner. Okay? Okay, so in determining the quantity of happiness that might be produced by an action, we evaluate the possible consequences by which several values apply. Now, these are intensity, the duration, certainty or the uncertainty, and then the propinquity or the remoteness, and the fecundity and purity, and the extent. So, of course, wa may kasabot na ma'am sa intensity, duration, certainty, propinquity, fecundity, purity, and extent. Um, explain na po ma'am. Intensity, no, refers to how intense is the pleasure or pain. So, usa ka bugat ang pleasure or the pain. That is what we call intensity. When you're going to ask yourself, was it too painful or enough pain that your pain threshold could tolerate? Now, as human being, we have this particular pain tolerance. Naatay, babag, maximum pain tolerance. Meaning to say, kaya nimo ni nga type of pain up to this level only. Muna kaya nimo. So, above that or below that threshold, di na kadyo ka mo agwanta. Okay, that's beyond your capacity naman. So, when we say intensity, so it refers on how intense is the pleasure or the pain. So, asa kataman, was it too painful or was it just enough? Or asa lang ako tub di mo makaya og tolerate ang pain. So, Bentham apparently thought intensity would vary from 0 to infinity, but psychological data indicates an upper threshold of pleasure. Hence, in 0 to 10 rate, 0 to 10 ang intensity. Sa pag-rate sa intensity of the pain. Now, pain could be measured in the same manner where uh, both pleasure and the pain. So, imo siyang i-rate from 0 to 10, both the pleasure and the pain. So, imo tan-awon na siya. How long can you last to accept the pain or the pleasure? So, kung may pleasure, infinity dyan na, oy. No? Ang pain mo na kadaduhaan. Kasi mga bitaw nang naiuban nga, hala, dugay na dito sila nga kanang uyab. Nagbuwag rangan man, nakawantang laki or nakawantang baji. Or may ka, matinga ka, no? Nga, hala, siya kay, gidunggag ng katulong, nakalakaw lagi gihapon. Ang ako nga, samad ra ko gamay kay, nahagba, mangganing ko. Because we have different pain or pleasure nga, kanang na threshold, no? Usahay min ka nga, sungutan ko ni ani ni kuan kay bisag gitagaan nag mga mahalon nga kuan wa lamang gyud gihapon di gyud siya happy bisag gibuhatan na sa ingon or sa ingana di gyud siya happy tungod kay ang imong actions does not equate a maximum happiness for them. Wala mo ingon bitaw ka nga na kanang I love me as me, not as you wanted me to be. Maringon, di ba, mga drama-drama ninyo. That is because there are times nga ang actuations sa katao dili nimo ma-appreciate or dili nimo ma-put in to the level of happiness that you are expecting, no? Kay lahi-lahi man ta na po iba nga sus Ginoo ko malipay rag ingani mo ingon ba ta kamubo galipay super cheap. Di man pugka, you cannot say that because mo pa isang threshold of happiness. Dali ra sa malipay. No, you cannot judge them. Okay? Naman tayo gitawag og pain or pleasure nga threshold. Okay? For duration, no, this refers to how long does the pleasure or pain last. So, self-explanatory, no? related po gani si just with which how you how ano na kanang intense is the pain or kanang pleasure, di ba? So you can hold it for some period of time. So we can use increments of time like seconds, minutes, and so forth. Now the time interval from the perceived beginning of the pleasure until the end of the pleasure in question. So you can use sa kaning sa atong for academic purposes, of course we will going to use the seconds, minutes, and so forth. But in the actual application of the concept in your life, of course, it takes years, no? Like, how long can you hold on to the pain of being with someone nga jagaan ra ka? So, di ba? How long can you be with someone that gives you this particular pleasure pero para nimo is not enough? So, mao na siya. The duration. It speaks about the duration. For certainty, now, this refers to the question of what is the probability for that pleasure or pain to occur. So, mana siya certainty or uncertainty, makita nimo, no, ma-predict na nimo or matanaw nimo nga taas og probability nga masakitan ko aning buhata or mubo og probability nga masakitan ko aning buhata or taas og probability nga mahappy ko aning buhata or mubo og probability nga mahappy ko aning buhata. So dapat when you act on something, you have to huna-huna. Sipin mo muna. Sure, Tagalog mas mamoy dapat. Oh. Huna-huna asa, no? Ah. Would it be, no? Is there a high probability of the pleasure to stay for long, or is there a high probability of pain to stay for long? So para maka-decide ka, sumin ka karon ni murag og makig say for example ako, maghuna-huna ko, ipanguyaban ko ni Liminho og ni kanang ni isa man na ba? Ni Liminho og ni Hyujung. Una-una ko ug ari ko ni Liminho daghan jud ko og kanang kontra. Pero I will be very very happy. Ug ari po kong Hyujung, wa ko kasi kontra pero ganahan man kong Liminho uy. So that decide over. So mingo karon kung niliminho ko, what is the probability that a painful experience or event would occur to me? So meron ako, daghang magpaduding niya. Daghang moakit niya. So, arang ka high probability nga mailisan ko. 'Di ba? High, jud kay daghan kong magsaoy-saoy niya, daghang mga magpaduding. So, naay taas nga probability for pain para naho. So, may ko, ay are na lamang ko ni Hyujung kay murag his eyes are for me. So, murag diring dapita, taas pod ang probability for pleasure to occur in the best way that I wanted. So, diha na, maka-decide na kagtarong adik ko. Bisan pagganahan ka ko ni Liminho, I like Liminho, pero ari ra gadyo kong kuan. Kanang Hyujung. Ba? So, mao na siya ang certainty or uncertainty. So, unta, no, kita nga mga tao, before ta mo act on something, we have to really think, no? We have to measure according to the values given by Jeremy Bentham. Pero, of course, in actual happenings, makahuna-huna, pabalagi ay ka, you are only after for the pleasure or the pain. Naraan ng duha. Okay? Okay, for propinquity or the nearness or remoteness, no? Meron siya og similar to the probability to occur, no? This time, it asks the question, how far off in the future is the pleasure or pain? So, marag, kung ganing na, naghuna-huna ta nga, naabagadyoy possibility nga, or is there a high or low probability for me to get hurt with engaging with liminho, or is there a high or low probability for me to experience pleasure with engaging with kanang hiyujong. So, mo man na ganina ang certainty. Ang propinquity or remoteness, ngayon ko, muingon tayo ko, sagdi na lamang sakitan ko, ari kong liminho. It's my ultimate happiness. So, karon, propinquity refers to how far off in the future. So, muingon ko, kay ba mo ko masakitan ko, ani? Kanus aka, no? Maybe after 2 years among relationship or 1 year after our relationship, wala na makakita ni Zaglain. So, na specific, no, ang ganina kay high and low probability raman. Probability to occur. But this one, propinquity, is the kanang magnanazay specific, how near or how remote, no? Extremes man na. Near or remote, near or far ba na, di ba? So, ang imong question karon, how near would the pain be? Or how remote, meaning to say, ladyo ra siya sa tinuod. So, mo na ang propinquity. Okay? Now, for fecundity, now this refers to the probability that the pleasure will lead to other pleasure, or the pain will lead to another pain. So, mo yung nakakaroon nga, B, kung ari ko niliminho, sure magadyo ko nga after 2 years, masakitan ko, kay manguyab si Jaglain. So, unsa pa kaha ang laing sakit nga masinati na ho. So, may karon na after 2 years nanguyab si Liminho ug lain, but I still don't want to break up with him. So, I will not give up. But what will happen? Nga naa naman sila lain, sige nag-away. What is the fecundity for another pain to occur? Basin og tungod kay sapot na dyan ako kahingaway ko, because naana say lain, makulataan na hinungko ni dya. So, aside from the pain in my chest, sa emotions, kay nasakitan ko, kay nanguyab si Jaglain, napagsi probability for another pain to occur, which is physical. Kay gisagpa na ko ni dya, kay nagsige na kong aliwaros o yaw-yaw or nag ni dya. So, man what we call fecundity. Okay? For purity, no, this refers to the question, what is the probability that the pain will lead to other pains? So, mamaoras dyan sa fecundity. Only, nabali pleasure da ito ganiha ang fecundity. Sorry class, I got confused. Paragi ka po'y nagajud ko. Kaya na-confuse na ko. Ang fecundity refers to the probability of the pleasure to lead to other pleasure. Ang purity is the probability of the pain to lead to another pain. So, pareha sila og concept, no? All you have to remember is fecundity for pleasure, purity for pain. So, mo na siya. Pareha sila. Morbag, you anticipated na if you are going to engage in this particular pain, what is the probability that this particular pain will lead you to another pain? So, for fecundity, what is, if you're going to engage in this particular pleasure, what is the probability that this pleasure will lead to another pleasure? So, pareha na sila nga concept ha. Gilain lang siya ang pain ug ang pleasure. Okay, for extent, this refers to how many persons are affected by the pleasure. It refers to the total amount of utility or pleasure can be had by summing a similar calculation for every other person who is affected by the action in question. So, kung may kakaroon nga extent, pila ka buok ang affected sa pleasure. So, may kakaroon, piliun ho si Hyojung because, piliun ho si Lee Min Ho because it gives me the most pleasure. So, when we measure it by extent, pila ka buok, no? How many persons are affected by the pleasure? Nga, ma-engage ni anak nga, buhat ni mo nga, nakig-uyab ka ni Lee Min Ho. So, for me, of course, ako, Lee Min Ho, ma-pleasure pa siya, oy. Pleasure pa siya makig-uyab na ho. So, it might be nga, ang parents ni Lee Min Ho, ang friends ni Lee Min Ho. So, mo na, imong tan-aon, what is the extent to which this particular pleasure in your act will affect people or persons. Okay? So, wait, I will check the time. Okay. Pagtaas na siya. Okay. I will put to this.